Welcome to the All Things AI podcast. This is the 21st episode, and today I'm so grateful to have here with me Pranav Kulkarni, the founder and managing partner of Strachey Consulting Group and an incoming student at Stanford University. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here today, and it's an honor to have you here.
And thank you, Ishan, for having me as well. And it is great to meet you.
Of course. And I'll just start off by asking, how's your weekend going so far?
Yeah, my weekend is going excellent. I'm actually based in Los Angeles at the moment, so clear skies.
Yeah, good to hear. It's
Yeah.
pretty nice outside too. It was rainy yesterday, but in Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah. So
Mhm.
without further ado, we can get into the first portion of today's interview, where I just want to ask you a few questions about your work in startups and consulting. So just to contextualize our discussion, can you tell us a bit about your startup and what you do?
Yeah, 100%. So, to kind of brief background, I'm currently building in the energy sector, specifically in solar and agriculture markets. So, what we do at our company right now, we're still pretty early stages, that we try to land contracts with these companies, such as biofarming companies and agricultural units, where as an AI-based company, we use LLMs and optimization technology to help, for example, increase yield and these other, agricultural metrics. And, just recently I was talking to a VP of an energy company in biofarming. And, one of the things that I enjoy the most about working in this industry is really, the way industry has shifted recently, right? We've just started 1 year ago, and with the various contracts we've been getting, we've been seeing, how really AI has been used to impact various sectors. So that's really what interests me, and it's the general feel for my startup.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's great that you contextualize everything that you're doing because I also want to touch on the outlook for the startup industry because I'm an enthusiast of the stock market and I really want to tie this
Mhm.
specific question in here because obviously in 2023, that was a great year for the stock market. But in the year prior, we saw that specifically like the startup industry with like biotech companies or even tech companies in general, there was not they didn't do as well as we thought they were going to perform, and that really led to like the startup market having a bit of a gloomier outlook than we initially thought because of like lower consumer confidence and the enthusiasm. So has that shifted now, and what are you really looking forward to as far as the outlook for the startup industry in your specific startup in the upcoming months?
Yeah, 100%. I'll tell you, I'll say that the startup industry is really fueled by where the money goes, right? A lot of the ways that industry shifts is the way venture capital influence is put on it. And I'll tell you that specifically in the energy sector, and it's almost been better than ever, right? We're seeing that more and more as, industry goes by. Areas such as solar, biofarming, vertical farming, these new and innovative sustainable energy markets are seeing just more and more investments, right? And that's kind of backing the way that things are shifting. And, as an example, the way Y Combinator and these other, large investment firms in VC, they invest is a lot of times they base it on metrics, right? And we're seeing sustainability metrics really take a large play into investment strategies. So that's why markets such as the one I'm in energy and solar really see a lot of shift, right? Not now, but also in the next couple of years where, um, you know, with additional investment, it'll lead to probably additional opportunity in our
Yeah.
area.
And so I think your point is kind of just to like sum it up is that in other areas of the startup industry, it might not be looking as bright, but specifically for green energy, it's looking awesome, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And anything really powered by AI is where a lot of investments going in.
Yeah.
More specifically in that, large language models, we're seeing a lot of early stage fundraising companies, Pair VC, Y Combinator, really invest in because of the way that, they're taking the grasp on specific industries, right? We're
Yeah.
seeing, large majorities of companies that YC's invested in their last batch just have LLM technology inside.
Yeah.
So definitely like implementation wise.
Yeah. I think LLMs and generative AI in general are one of the most advantageous ways that you can use AI because it's general public, right? Everyone can use that. And
Mhm.
as we see with ChatGPT, obviously that works off text, but I think one of the things that OpenAI did with, I think it was DALL-E, if I'm saying it correctly, where
Mhm.
they're
Yeah.
going to do more things with like image analysis, and even other companies that are going to work with like text to audio, or like things with that, everything that you can do with AI. And it's going to get much more diversified because of the generative AI industry. So I think the outlook there is looking great. I also like the point that you made about the green energy industry. And I think that it just generally makes sense because we see that Biden is also preaching many like carbon-free initiatives, like obviously with
Mhm.
EVs. And there was the new bill that came
Mhm.
out a few months ago. I think it was by the year 2030 or sometime around there, 60 something
Mhm.
percent of the cars that were sold had to be EVs. And it's a great goal to have. And I think moving towards goals like that, with whether it's with EVs or like things with the Inflation Reduction Act, and making the environment a
Mhm.
better place from that perspective, also AI and tech in general is going to have a huge push forward because it has great potential in every single way.
100%. Yeah.
And I also want to take a look at like in the process, I'm sure you found some things to be fairly easy, or some parts like I know one of the past interviews that I had a long time ago in the startup, getting
Mhm.
funding itself was one of the hardest parts. So from your perspective specifically, what do you find to be the most challenging part about having a startup and really working through that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question and a bit of more unorthodox answer. The main challenges that I've faced is actually breaking into the industries that we're looking at, right? Because a lot of times it's not the venture capital that's the issue for the startups I'm working in. It's the industry that we're trying to break into and how tight-knit the areas we are. So as an example, looking at vertical farming unit companies or these energy grid companies that based around solar tech, right? A lot of times getting our foot into the door as an early stage startup and trying to enter the market is more difficult than actually having a product of our own,
Yeah.
right? So we already have the resources. The main thing we've been doing is pooling our connections and trying to do additional customer calls and kind of tell you more about that. With my experience with the industry, just a bit of context, I had a lot of research in energy markets, right? I did energy grid research, which I took with IEEE, and I also had sustainability research. And
Yeah.
a lot of that fueled my push where I eventually took it to the United Nations with the
Wow.
COP28 conference. And that's really where I learned, how these markets function and the relationship between public-private sector cooperation. But those kind of connections that I built along the way are some of the areas where, even though I faced difficulties in, getting in the markets, once we did eventually, tap into these various markets to learn more about, LLM implementation and yield optimization, that's really where we saw our success with getting contracts.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. And I also want to take a few minutes to shed some light on your other company, which is Strachey
Mhm.
Consulting Group. And I think when we were on our pre-call before, we were talking about how it's really geared towards migrations and geopolitical movements from that perspective. And I think that might be the most unique way that I've seen AI being
Mhm.
used. So I definitely want to get to learn more about that. And I think it'll be amazing for the viewers of this episode to also take a second to realize exactly what you're doing with that. So can you tell us the goal of Strachey Consulting Group and what techniques it leverages to fulfill its task?
100%. And just for context, the best way we describe ourselves as Strategy Consulting Group is innovation in government consulting, right? So what we do as a firm is we deliver data-driven results for our clients. And I'll tell you really how we started. So as the founder and managing partner of Strategy Consulting Group, we originally originated as kind of a small research organization. So around 3, 4 years ago, we won the Intel Global AI Impact Award, where this award was centered around, how can AI be utilized to impact humanitarian scenarios? And
Yeah.
we had a prototype idea where, for example, a refugee, they travel from point A to point B. Our entire idea was an optimization one where, we optimize our routes for refugees and migrants to travel on for safety and efficiency metrics, so mathematical kind of algorithm. And that's really how we won the award, and we took it from there. So we managed to get partnerships with organizations such as Intel, working with several United Nations officials and others to kind of build up our resources. And from there, we took a shifting approach to government consulting. We realized that, for us to have the largest reach, migration specialized geopolitical consulting, this humanitarian affairs is really where we see the greatest reach. So what we do now is that we consult with international bodies. I can give you a couple examples.
Yeah.
We did some previous research work with data from publicly available data from organizations like Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan governments, where essentially we take humanitarian data, we help build data-driven insights for our clients to use for whatever kind of necessary resources they would like.
Yeah, yeah. And that's awesome to hear that this is how wide-spanning of an initiative that's become. And I think that's amazing. I really want to take a second to understand what the math itself is looking like, because
Mhm,
I think providing the best route and things like that are really important in today's crises, especially because
mhm,
even with like your startup, for example, there's environmental factors and people predict that by 2050, certain places of Earth are going to be inhabitable. And that's one of the biggest concerns that we have. So I think work like this really needs to be
mhm.
done. So what does the math exactly look like behind how you're moving people in the most efficient manner and things like that?
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of what it looks like is optimization model, specifically a lightweight machine learning model. And the way we've done that is actually primarily just research backed. So one core component of strategy consulting that we take a lot of pride in is the way we generate our innovation. And with our organization, we actually have our own research department where, we work on these papers that eventually get sent to IEEE, where, we develop lightweight models that can be utilized in humanitarian situations where the computational power is not as available. We
Yeah.
generate these optimization models where essentially we take in multi-factored data approaches, right? Multi-factored optimization where we factor in, geospatial data, we factor in migration data, refugee information, and really what data our clients are giving us. And we take our optimization model and we utilize it to generate insights, whether it's, pathing for certain migrants, whether it's, the way that the land is spaced for refugee camps, these various humanitarian insights that are really done through an optimization algorithm. So really a new and innovative way we've used our AI technology and combining it with data from our clients to generate innovative results.
Yeah. And I'll just ask this as a fun question. As an optimization, is it kind of like calculus stuff?
Um, we can say so. Yeah, it's more than the calculus we learned in high school, right? There's levels above to it that we're working with here with more and more data points. It gets more and more complicated to optimize. A lot of things I do. So I'm currently planning on majoring in math plus CS
Yeah.
at Stanford, and a lot of the things I do in math are in this kind of realm. So previously, I did math research where I invented a corollary for the Newton-Gauss theorem. That was in pure math, but then I also started doing more applied math work in, hyperbolic optimization, missile optimization, those various research areas.
Makes sense. And that's great to hear. I think it looks like you're really advanced in the math and CS. And I think that's really what we need, especially with starting a startup and the steps that it takes to advance that. And with that being said, seeing that you have great experience across the different realms of AI and really applying AI through research or your startup or even strategy consulting, I want to see what advice you can give for the next generation, specifically those who might be in elementary and middle school, looking to get
Mhm.
into this new world of tech and really explore and find their niche. So I'll just start off by asking in this, how'd you get into AI and where did your passion all start?
That's a great question. And I'll tell you, for me, it really stemmed from my math background, right? So ever since, a couple of years back, I really had passion for math, especially the way that math can be applied to real world scenarios. So a lot of things I've been doing have been applied research work. And that kind of fueled my way that led me to AI eventually, where the questions that came up to me were how can we use AI to create real world impact? That was really a driving thing. But for other people to kind of pursue their advice, I would say find an area that really interests you and just dive deep into it, right?
Yeah.
The main thing in this next generation are marketable skills that are vital, to learn and to expand to either create profitability, start your own company, and more. So the best thing I would say is focus on a specific skill. Can be, optimization, it can be programming,
Yeah.
and dive into it. Read research papers. That's something I always recommend. Read books and, always keep doing projects because doing small projects like what I did initially with Strachey Consulting Group can eventually turn out to be, a larger idea like a consulting firm. So definitely taking your ideas and just doing various projects can help you learn along the way, where you really find your insight into the area that you most like. Yeah.
That makes sense. And lastly, I just want to ask, how has your education that you've really received throughout different years of level maybe even impacted your interest in math? And particularly, how has it gotten you into AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, a lot of the work that I've done has been backed by the learning I've done out of school. So in school, I've, already reached the highest levels of math I could
Yeah,
take.
I can tell.
The way that I try to learn more is, by reaching outside resources.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, one thing I did was take a lot of extra courses from community college, right? Ordinary differential equations, these various math courses that allowed me just to learn fundamental topics. And then I did a lot of reading on the side, right? A
Yeah.
lot of just research reading, textbook reading that gave me that baseline understanding for the math skills. But from there, it's not an issue of skill, it's an issue of implementation. So I did a lot of projects from there, that kind of took the math skills I learned from school and from these resources and put them to the test, whether it's, just various stock market analysis, math projects, poker analysis, or these various projects that, helped utilize my math skill, which eventually took me to where I'm at with my research in math.
Yeah, and that's great to hear. I think really starting off with the education itself that you receive in the younger years, and then if you develop your passion, whether that be in technology or policy, anything that you want to explore, I think that's how I've really approached it too. Just finding my interest, and then like now that I take AP computer science, for example, really finding that this is what I want to do and further exploring tech. I think that's really the amazing way to do it. And I think
Mhm.
everyone should follow their passion. And I think that's what you're suggesting too. So it's awesome to
Yeah,
hear that.
yeah, 100%.
And with that being said, thank you so much for joining me here today. And it's been awesome having you.
Yeah, thank you, Ishan, for having me as well. Again, incredible discussion, and I look forward to what we have in the future.
And with that being said, for anyone watching this, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below.